Hello, and welcome to Romeo and Juliet Behind the Masque. I'm your host, Miss Van B, and throughout this mini-series, we'll be delving into the background of the characters of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet to really figure out what was going through their minds when all of this went down. We know from last week that the feud between the Capulets and the Montagues has gone on for centuries. We start our play, Act 1, Scene 1, seeing the ramifications of that feud. In this week's episode, we will be looking at the characters and the fight of Act 1, Scene 1. Then we will continue on to look at Act 1, Scenes 2, 3, and 4 before concluding this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in to Behind the Masque. Choose your character. So here's a character map to help you out hopefully a little bit with remembering who is on which side of the feud. So everything is going to be color-coded from this point forward. I put the setting up here, Verona, Italy. And then we have the Montagues, which are blue, and we have the Capulets, which are red. And I use the photos of the 1996 movie version, which is my favorite, and I'll use those same photos throughout, so you'll be able to learn the characters hopefully a little bit better. We have Romeo, Mercutio, and Benvolio on the Montague side, and then we have Juliet, Tybalt, Paris, and the nurse on the Capulet side. I added Paris to this slideshow because he is going to show up in Act 1, Scene 2. So we're going to meet him pretty quickly, and we're going to learn what role he's going to play in this play. And then Friar Lawrence is green because he's neutral. He doesn't have a side. He's friends with both families. He's kind of like a father figure to Romeo, and he ends up helping them out a little bit later, so he's going to be green. Now, Act 1, Scene 1 starts with the fight. We have Samson and Gregory, and they're servants for the house of the Capulets, which is Juliet's family. Juliet, Capulet, rhyme, so that's how you can remember that. They're just walking down the street, and they're kind of, talking about guy stuff, making some inappropriate jokes, and then they start talking about the Montagues. And if they see a Montague, they say, straight up, no matter what, we're going to fight him. And that's how deep this feud goes, is that even the servants of the household feel like they need to defend the honor of their family. And so then, lo and behold, we have the Montagues come along. And this is Abraham and Balthazar. They're also servants for the Montague household. And there's some pretty intense trash talk that goes back and forth. There's some thumb biting, which is kind of like, oh, cool, bite your thumb at me. But back then, biting your thumb at someone is kind of equivalent to flipping somebody off today. So they kind of get into it. There you can see the thumb biting. So we would like to go ahead and hear from some of the people who were down at that fight about kind of what went on and how it started and things like that. Hello, my name's Abraham of the House of the Montagues. Blue Montague, don't forget it, please. My name is Samson. I'm from the House of the Capulets. We wear the red, thank you very much. Here's what happened, right? I'm going to tell you what happened. So I'm walking down the street with my friend Balthazar, and we're just walking along minding our own business when we come across these bloody Capulets who are just taking up the whole street like a bunch of stinking dogs, like they are, right? And one of them comes up and he starts biting his thumb at us. He's biting his thumb! I was walking down the street with my friend Gregory, and we're just minding our own business, talking about those Montagues, and how if we ever see one on the streets, we're just going to fight them, because that's what we're supposed to do. We have to defend the honor of the Capulet household. So we're not going to let Montagues walk all over us. Until we see some, right? They're walking down the street. They think they're all cool and smooth like Montagues do.
And so Gregory says he's going to frown at them as they pass by. And I says, I'll do you one better. I'm going to bite my thumb at them. So I bite my thumb. I said, So I says, do you bite your thumb at us, sir? And he says, I do bite my thumb, sir. I says, do you bite your thumb at us, sir? And he says, and so I had to check with Gregory, and I said, is the law on our side if I say I? Which means, like, are we going to get in trouble if I say yes? Because that means that we started the fight, and I don't want to start the fight. I want them to start the fight. I want to finish the fight, you know what I'm saying? So I says, no, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. If you think it's for you, then it must be for you. So I says, do you quarrel, sir? Like, you want to fight? I got my sword. Let's go. We'll fight right here, right now. So then we goes back and forth a little bit, and then finally I say, all right, you know what? If you be men, you better draw your swords, because we're about to have it out right now. And so he says, draw if ye be men. So of course I'm like, all right, here we go. We're going to fight right here in the middle of the street, even though we know we're not supposed to do that, because we've gotten in trouble for that a lot of times before. But what am I supposed to do? And we was doing all right, you know. I was like, and then that Benvolio comes in. And that's when Benvolio came in. Hi, my name's Benvolio. I'm with the Montagues. Romeo's my cousin, and he's also a really good friend. What did I think about the fight? Well, you know, I'm just the kind of person who really believes that fighting is not the answer, and it's really starting to get on my nerves, because that's all anybody wants to do around here is settle things with their swords, and that's not how we're supposed to do things. Yeah, so I just went in there and I just said, you know, part fools, put up your swords. We can't be doing this, especially on a public street like this, right? It's not okay. I thought everything was going to be all right. I thought I had solved the problem all by myself. We were going to be done with this. No one was going to get hurt or in trouble. And then that Tybalt comes in the scene, and of course everything just gets derailed the second he walks into a room. Yeah, what up? I'm Tybalt. I'm a Capulet. I like to fight. It's kind of my thing. So I walk up to this brawl, right, and there's Benvolio trying to get everybody to put their swords away, and I'm like, what are you doing? You art drawn among these heartless hinds. Turn thee, Benvolio, and look upon thy death. And he's all trying to keep the peace and everything, which is the most annoying thing about him. And he draws his sword, and he's still talking about peace. And I'm like, what? Drawn and talk of peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell and all Montagues. I freaking told him. And I said, have at thee, coward. And then we fought. It was going so well, and then that stupid prince had to come in. Yeah, Prince Aeschylus here. I'm kind of like the mayor of Verona, or whatever. So here's the deal about these Capulets and these Montagues. I'm really at the end of my rope with these people. This is the third time we've had a brawl in the streets. People have died from this. And I'm like, I can't have this for my citizens, right? My people need to be able to walk the streets and not fear that there's going to be a Montague versus Capulet breakout in the middle of the street, right? Okay, so, I mean, I do what I can with these people. This time I just kind of said, Capulet, I'd like to talk to you. Montague, I'd like to talk to you. Both heads of households, get it all out in the air, say no more. We can't do this anymore. And here's what I did. Here's how far I went. I said, if there is one more brawl in these streets, I will execute every single person involved. I'm serious. I will do it. I have the power. I will do it. I mean, we're tired of it. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. So I said, on pain of death, all depart. Everybody get out of here. I'm literally going to kill all of you. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Yeah, so I'm pretty glad the prince came in, actually, because, you know, it needed to be dealt with, and I feel like he did a really nice job of making sure that hopefully this doesn't happen anymore, especially in the streets. And then, you know, Romeo finally showed up, and everyone was gone by then, and he kind of, you know, said what happened, you know, why do we keep fighting? I mean, he's kind of on the same page with me in that aspect, is he's just done with all the fighting. And the thing about Romeo is that he's very emotional. I mean, not in like a bad way, but he's just, you know, feels his feelings really deeply. And I feel like something's bothering him recently, because he hasn't been talking to anyone. He's not really been eating. His parents want me to figure out what's going on. So I'm trying to be a good friend, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with him so that I can help him, maybe. Sad hours seem long. Alas, that love, whose view is muffled still, should without eyes see pathways to his will. Here's much to do with hate, but more with love. Why then, O brawling love, O loving hate, O anything of nothing first create? O heavy lightness, serious vanity, misshapen chaos of well-seeming forms, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, still waking sleep, that is not what it is. This love feel I, that feel no love in this. I am in love. Yeah, so I talked to Romeo, and he's in love, apparently, but he's really confused about it because he kept saying things like bright smoke and cold fire, whatever that means. And I told him, I said, buddy, being in love shouldn't make you feel this bad, right? I mean, that's not what love's supposed to feel like. So anyway, I guess I'm still working on it.
Act 1, Scene 2, we are at the Capulet household, and this is where we meet Paris. Paris is having a conversation with Lord Capulet, who's Juliet's dad, and Paris says, I would like to marry Juliet. That's why I'm here, asking for permission to ask for her hand in marriage. And Lord Capulet says, well, she's pretty young still. She's only 13. Remember that, she's only 13. But I tell you what, if you can woo her, if you can get her to fall for you, then we can have a conversation about it. And then he says, I'm having a party. Come to this party. It's kind of to get Juliet, interested in some suitors and things like that anyway. So that would be a really good chance for you guys to meet and to talk. Paris is like, all right, deal. I'll be there. And that's it for Act 1, Scene 2. Act 1, Scene 3, we're in Juliet's room and we get a chance to meet Juliet's mom and the nurse. Now, Lady Capulet comes in and has to have kind of an uncomfortable conversation with her daughter. And so she says, nurse, leave us alone. We need a private conversation. And then she changes her mind and she says, wait, can you please stay? Because I'm nervous. I don't know how to talk to my daughter about this. Something you have to understand about the relationship between Juliet and the nurse is that it is a lot stronger than her relationship with her mom. The nurse has raised Juliet. She was actually Juliet's wet nurse, which means that she breastfed Juliet instead of her own mother. So that just shows you how strong their bond is. That's why Lady Capulet is like, I don't know how to talk to her about this. Essentially, the conversation goes like this. Lady Capulet says, Juliet, you're 13. It's time for you to be thinking about marriage. She says, I was your age when I had you. You're falling behind. You're going to be this old maid and nobody's going to want you. And Juliet says, I don't want to get married yet. I'm not ready for that. I'm still just young and I'm figuring things out. And, the nurse kind of bounces back and forth. She doesn't really help the conversation a lot. She mostly just makes inappropriate comments and jokes. But then eventually she says, Juliet, it's time for you to settle down maybe and start looking for a man. And then they talk about the party and how Paris is going to be there. And the nurse is like, Paris, he's a man of wax, which means he is a high tea. He would be a good one for you. And so that's pretty much it for Act 1, Scene 3. Act 1, Scene 4, we're on the streets of Verona, and Romeo has found out about the Capulet party. And so he tells his friends, and they're all going to go. They're going to crash the party. Now, Mercutio and Benvolio, their goal is to try to make Romeo forget about this person, this woman he's in love with, and to try to cheer him up, to get him to realize that there are way more fish in the sea, like, you shouldn't be this depressed over some girl. And so they're going to the party to be like, we're going to show you that there's all these hotties around that you can, get with, and it's going to be fine. You're not going to need this girl that you're in love with, whoever she is. And then we find out that Romeo is actually in love with a girl named Rosalind. And Rosalind is actually Juliet's cousin. At this point in the play, Romeo and Juliet have never met. They do not know who each other is. They don't know each other. So they're going to this party. He's going to this party because he wants to see Rosalind. Okay. Now, there's a big spiel that Mercutio has where he's like, you need to get over this, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's just a crush. Stop acting like a big baby. Stop being so emotional. He says, if love be rough with you, be rough with love. You got to push right back. You got to show it who's boss. So they're going to this party. They're all wearing their masks or their disguises or whatever, so no one knows that there's Montagues at the party. And that's where we're going to stop for this week. In next week's episode, like I said before, we are going to go to the party and we're going to see how that all unfolds.
Thank you for watching this episode of Romeo and Juliet Behind the Mask. Next week, we'll get an inside look on this party that Capulet has thrown, and we'll see how Romeo and Juliet come together for the first time. Everything you guys need for your assignments this week is under modules, and it's called April 13th through 17th Activities Instructions. And it's going to give you a keynote that you're going to download. And on that keynote, there are the 2 worksheets that you guys are going to complete. One of them is an Instagram page for a character of your choice, and the other one is a Shakespearean insults page. So you're going to download that keynote. Right after this video, there's instructions to help you along with that. And then if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Remember, my office hours are Monday and Wednesday from 2:30 to 3:30 and Thursday from 9:30 to 10:30.
Okay, so this first slide, this is your Instagram template, and all you have to do is create your text boxes to fill in like the number of posts and the followers and the Instagram bio, and then you can just drag and drop pictures that you find from the internet or pictures that you've taken yourself or quotes or whatever it is that you're going to do to help represent the character that you have chosen. Make sure that you put the character name somewhere. That way I know. And then really think about what kind of pictures, what kind of quotes, what kind of captions and stuff they would have. There's not a specific room for captions, but if you'd like to put text boxes at the bottom of some of the pictures, that's totally fine. This next slide is for your Shakespearean insult activity. And this is the combination of the stuff that you can choose. So column A, what you're going to do for this is you're going to choose one word from each column to create your own insults. Now, I gave you the link to the Quizlet that has the definitions. So go look at the definitions. Make sure you actually know what you're saying so that it makes sense when you put it together. But you're choosing one word from each column. And if you look at the next slide, which I'm going to go to, this next slide is where you put everything together. So this is where your A word goes, your B, and then your C. And then with that Quizlet, you're going to write the translation. Okay, so this is the definition that goes down here. The first line is for the original Shakespearean insult. The second line is for the translation on Quizlet. And then I just want a little explanation down here of who would you call this in which situation. Remember, this is pretend. Please don't be mean for real. It's just supposed to be a fun activity. And then if you have any questions, let me know.